Hi, I'm Pam Kello, and I'd like to show you how to install the Rooster decal from our Farm Menagerie collection. I'm going to first show you the tools that we need for the install. You're going to need a cloth, you're going to need alcohol, a blow dryer, toothbrush, and sponges. One for alcohol and the other is just clear. Scissors, for some doors duct tape, which we'll talk about that, squeegee, couple of pins, possibly a ruler. You have your box cutter with a fresh blade, tape, and then your straight edge. And I particularly like my knife. Some people may prefer the wallpaper cutter, but I showed it just in case. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to prepare the door. It is incredibly important. This is probably the most important part of the installation, is being sure that it's prepped. You take your alcohol, put it on your sponge, and I use the scrubby side of the sponge. But don't be aggressive with this. You do not want to scratch your door. Not that I think that it would, but just be super cautious. And you clean it. Now, I've already cleaned this door, so I'm not going to labor it too much. This door does not have grooves around it. So you wouldn't necessarily have to use the paintbrush or the toothbrush. However, if you have deep recessed doors, you'd have to use this to get way down into the cracks and crevices along the edges to be sure that all the grease and oils and dirt is out of those crevices. Then you take your clear sponge and you clean it off. Be sure that it's nice and clean. You use your cloth, drying it well. But as you know, that no matter how hard you try to dry that, it's not going to get it as dry as you need. So what we'll do is we'll also use our blow dryer, and we will dry down into the crevices. Now I'm going to pause this and do a couple of steps, and we'll pick back up in a minute. Now I've taken a couple of minutes and I've gone ahead and blow dry this for a little period of time. And then I've also taken our duct tape and I have put it around the outer edges. Now there's a little bit of a ringer that comes in with this. This is a vinyl door, and some of you may have vinyl doors. We want to protect it from being cut as best we can. What I am doing to protect it from being cut is to take duct tape, and I'm going to install it along the edges for a little bit of additional protection in between the cutting of the box cutter and the actual door itself. Now, if you viewed my other video with the goat on it, you will see that that is an actual wooden door, and that door has a raised panel. This one is really going to be very simple to install because it is a flat panel. The raised panel, if you're installing this Rooster, and you may need to go back to the goat installation to see how to do a raised panel. So I've got my duct tape on here, and I'm very happy with how that is put on. And then we're going to take our Rooster and we are going to position him. Now I'm going to take the Rooster and put a little bit of just regular blue tape on it, and I like a good solid long piece of hinge, but I'm not going to, other than hooking it onto the actual Rooster himself, I'm not going to tack that down on the door unless my duct tape wants to grab it. Now the design of this Rooster is that he has a little bit of breathing room between this edge right here, there's his beak, and it's designed that I added a lot of tail feathers in order to have those tail feathers cut off. And I'm going to be sure that I'm positioned very squarely up here and positioned down here so that I have enough to trim off, because we will be trimming this bird. I'm going to just gently tack this down like this. And I'm going to take a look at how I measure up around all of those edges. And it looks like he's measuring quite well. I'm going to measure from here down to the top of the decal, which is a little over 1 3/4. And then this is exactly correct on this side. And what you do is you measure from the top down to the decal. The decals themselves are designed to be square. So once we get the rooster, we're going to lift up underneath. And this piece of, be sure that you tack your blue tape down very, very solid. That is going to be our hinge. We're going to take the decal and begin to peel off the backing from that. Now when I peel the backing off, I'm going to actually go probably about halfway down. And then you pick your rooster up and you kind of float him down into position, just very gently, pushing him in. And bringing it down. And you can see that he's laid down very, very nicely. When it comes to the edges, and you may have a tendency to kind of have to fight your little bit of duct tape. Now, if you have a solid wood door, you're not going to have this problem. I do this as an additional insurance to be sure that I try not to cut the door if I can help it. My suggestion to you is I used blue duct tape in order for it to show up better on the videos. However, I suggest you use black, and then that way it blends in around all the edges in case by some chance a little bit of duct tape gets left. Now when you're installing this, the first thing that we do is be sure that he's on here in the middle very, very solidly. So I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm going to very gently go across this, being sure that I get the bulk of it down very nicely. Now, if any of you have ever worked with contact paper or wallpaper, you know that you have a lot of bubbles. We'll deal with those later. Now I'm going to take the edges and I take my fingers and I push it down and pull it up this way in order that it's not attached to the duct tape or to the side of the stile, and I push that down in there. I'm going to turn it, and at this point I can remove my blue tape because it's already in position, and of course it's not going to pull off, is it? And I get rid of my blue tape and I take the decal, lift it up a little tiny bit. Now it's very important when you put the duct tape on there, if you have a vinyl door, it's very important that you do not get it down onto the panel. All you're wanting to do is to protect this edge. There is none of this that is down on the actual panel itself. It's only the edging. And then I take and I really shove that up in there to where I have a good crisp line across the top of that raised panel, or the top of that panel. Going to the other side, I lift this up. I'm going to have to separate it from my duct tape because it's wanting to grab. And like I said, if you have a solid wood door, you're not going to be dealing with the duct tape. This is just an additional thing for people who have a different type door, and it's something they need to see. I'm going to take and you pull it up and you take your finger and you shove that down into the edge of that panel. All the way across, I'm shoving it so that it's really tight in there. Now I'm going to caution you at this point not to overwork any of this. If you overwork it, you can actually remove some of the colorings and some of the dyes. It's not like it's an actual painting. It is a decal. So be cautious. And if you get a little bit of a scratching on there, that's fine. That just adds to the appearance of it being a little bit rustic. Coming down to the bottom corner, once again, I'm shoving this down into all the edges. And there it goes, right down in there. So you have it all the way across. I'm going to take my squeegee just to be a little extra cautious. Try to get that up in there. Like I said, you want it to be solid, but don't be too aggressive with this. The last thing we want to have happen is for it to scratch the actual decal itself. Now, it still has several bubbles. We'll deal with that later. We're going to take our blade with a fresh cutting surface, and we take our 4-inch blade, lay it down as tight as you can up against that bottom stile. Tight. And there we go. We're cutting that. This is going great, guys. And we'll pull that away a little bit. There we are. Now I'm going to flip my door around, and I'm going to take the blade and you shove it up into those corners. You really are sure that you have a nice square corner, and you do that by shoving your blade up into there. And once again, I'm at the corner. I shove it deeply up in that corner. This side just needs a little more cutting. And then we'll shove that down in there. Now, like I said, the purpose of the duct tape is to protect the vinyl. The vinyl is just a covering of plastic, and it's baked on there. And of course, as you know, a knife can cut plastic. And if you have doors that you'd really like to protect, I suggest that you use this technique for any of your doors. If you have some doors that you feel like really need some extra protection, then do this. It's not going to hurt anything. Coming down the very final edge, shoving it up into the corner. Cutting off his tail. What this appears to be is though he is out of frame. And if any of you know anything about photography, very rarely do you see the entire image that it is that you're interested in. And this shoves it as though he's entering into the door from his cage. So you don't have to see all of his tail. Now we're going to pull this up and pull it all off. All right, now we have him trimmed, and let's see what we have to do with the duct tape. And pull the duct tape off. A little bit of a thread there. And as you can see, our rooster's coming out beautifully. And if you have a little duct tape on there, I have a string from where it's pulled a little bit. What you can do is you can work that out, and we will do that. And like I said, probably if you use black duct tape, it would be better, because if I have any strings that's showing, it's going to be this bright blue. But there's a purpose behind the bright blue. And I'm going to look across. I'm standing in front of light, so it's very easy for me to look. I try to work as much as I can out of the bubbles, and you might see that I've got some sizable bubbles in here. I take my pen, barely pierce it, and then shove that out. The bubble is gone. Any of the bubbles. And what's great about it is you cannot see the holes because it heals itself. Now don't be aggressive with this. Anything I'm telling you to do, be sure that you're using a light touch with all of it. Now I'm not going to overwork this, but as you can see, when I get all the bubbles worked out, we have the beautiful rooster. It's very simple to do. I would like to thank all of you for purchasing my products. And I will be coming out on a regular basis with even more animals and on just as steady as I can. And it'll go from this to all different new ideas. You can find me at Pamela Kello Murals on Facebook. And thank you so much.